Naby Keita is literally Red Bull.
Yeah,
Not Red Bull Leipzig, but he's like a shot of Red
like
Bull. And he's
anything he
just like he's like that's Naby Keita. He wants to be that go, go, go. All right, everyone. Welcome to Tampa Bay Cop Talk. I'm Darius.
I'm David. That
I
was
mean,
easy this time.
it's easy with two people. Like, we're not going to screw that one up.
Piece of cake.
We're missing a couple of guys today. Jordan is hurt. He's got a headache, and Andrew was unable to make it either. So it's just a little one-on-one time with David and Darius, the D's, going at it. Oh, my. But no, we're just going to kick it and have a kind of an open conversation just about Liverpool this season. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've seen so far, what we would hope to see, and maybe even a little too much talk about the future. We don't really want to be the show where we're already talking about next season when they still got a dozen games left. But
But it might be all we have to look forward to.
we might be talking about some Mbappe 2022 type stuff. We might get into that. But let's just start off with these guys that I've got behind me. So drafted up a little campaign poster for the center backs that I want to see for the rest of the season. Kabak and Phillips. Those are the two that I'm looking at, David, just because you keep mentioning it every single time, whether it's through our group chat or we're here on the podcast. Phillips hasn't really put a foot wrong this season. You can maybe get him for like one mistake against Brighton on a ball that could have been cleared out or something like that. Otherwise, he's been perfectly fine all season long. He's not a sexy name. He's obviously not someone who's a super prospect, and he's not a high recruit who came in over the summer or anything like that. He's just kind of a dude, but he's been playing well. And then Kabak, he's probably one for the future who has had to become one for now because of all of the injuries. So I've said who I want. David, who are you looking at if you're getting your dream pairing among all of the center backs available?
At this point, I don't think I can say anything about Ben Davis because I've never seen the guy play for Liverpool, and I don't know what to expect when he does. So I can't go, well, I really like to see Davis in there. I think, look, Kabak and Phillips, there's a part of me that it gives me pause because neither one of them has ever played left-sided center back, but then we had to see it against Everton, and, we didn't really drown. Like, most of the game they were fine, and I thought to myself, well, maybe it's just kind of overblown. They're in there to do a job. I like the way you described it. He's a dude. Like, you're right. Nothing that Phillips does is sexy, and for that reason, he's never going to be a top choice center back for Liverpool. He might end up going in the summer and end up somewhere else, and then he is a top choice center back at Bolton Wanderers where he started, or maybe even a lower level Premier League team like a Burnley or something. I don't know. But for now, he's a dude who can do a job. And he's shown that he can do that job. So I do want to see him in there. I kind of got to the point that exactly what you're going to get. And the thing I like about a guy like that is I can plan around it if I know exactly what I'm going to get. Kabak, maybe a little bit more of a wild card. But the kid's a kid of break. He's only played like 3 games.
And he's 20 years old.
He's 20 years old. You can see that he's very talented. You can see that he's an athlete. The kid's a unit, the way he's built. And he's got a good head on his shoulders, I think. Like he seems very much like willing to learn, pretty humble. It's the kind of guy Klopp wants. He reminds me a lot of Dejan Lovren, but maybe a little bit more athletic, like we've said before. So I'm fine with it. Put the two of them in there together. I think right now, if you're going to remain with 4 at the back and it's just going to be 2 center backs, then I think that's your 2 center backs, and you just trust them. It's going to be a little bit different. Where I think that we've talked about it before, and I'm sure that we'll get to this more. But if you're going to play them, I don't know if the 4-3-3 works because I think they're going to naturally sit a little bit deeper. They don't have the pace to keep up, to play the super high line that the 4-3-3 requires. So if they need to sit deeper, why not just play 4-2-3-1, put a couple of defensive midfielders in front of them and create another line? You know what I mean? So it's a little bit more staggered. I'm hoping that's what they're working on in training this week. I'd love to see a 4-2-3-1. Love to see Naby come in and play a role in that. whatever it is. I don't care. Just like I wouldn't mind Naby playing like the 10 or something, you know.
Yeah, I think what we want to see is a midfield that's just obviously consistent, but I know we're on the same page. I hope Jurgen Klopp is too, but let's pivot to the pivot role in that 4-3-3 midfield. The number 6, we want to see Fabinho back there so bad, don't we?
If dude's healthy, he's got to be there. I mean, honestly, at this point, I think Genie, it's been made clear it's not his best role. And he doesn't like. So the thing that I think makes Fabinho and Hendo special is their ability to win the ball back in that position and then redistribute it super quickly, like into a place where it's dangerous for the opposition. They're constantly on the back foot. Genie doesn't necessarily do that the same way. And I just feel like, look, it's homeboy's last year at the club. And he's going to leave. Let's just free him up to go do something and have a little fun. He should be getting up the pitch trying to score goals. Remember that?
Like you got to feel so bad for Genie because coming into the year, you see that Thiago's come in. That's probably his replacement. Curtis Jones is getting a more advanced role. That's probably going to be his replacement. They already brought in Naby Keita, who was definitely supposed to be his replacement. And while you're just supposed to be like, all right, go play one of the 8 roles. You get to be the free man. Go play forward. This is like a gap year. This is like take the foreign language classes or the history of dance classes, your senior year of college. You get to do whatever you want to do. Man. But no. Now it turns out we need you to take advanced chemistry. We need you to take all the tough classes. You have all of the world on your shoulders because you're the only one who did not get hurt. So that's worse. So unfair for Genie because this was supposed to be an easier for him. And now it's like, Genie, please save us. Please save us.
It's not even chemistry, man. Like that would be like if Klopp like switched systems and was like, I need you to play right back. No, this is like this is like vocational school, backhoe licensing. You know?
Back-breaking work.
Yeah, this is back-breaking manual labor for him. Like this is just even worse than all of that. And I feel bad. I do feel bad for him. I feel like, yeah, we should just cut him loose. One of my favorite Genie moments, like of the last couple of years, and there's been a lot, but I read that goal that he scored on the counter this year, where he just took off and he banged it in from the top.
We finally got to see Haaland Genie in that moment.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see him do that on a regular basis, you know, like, or at least try to. And he never gets the opportunity. You know, just kind of like, just put Fabinho back in. I don't give a shit if there's no one behind him. Just put it back in the 6 and let Genie go back up the pitch. And like, we're putting a lot on Curtis Jones now. I don't mind it. I think it's great for him. He's rising to the occasion for the most part. But like, down the stretch, they should be rotating regularly. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see Keita start regularly. I'd like to see a little bit more of Oxlade-Chamberlain, not off the bench. I think that we don't get our best from Ox when he's off the bench. I'm not saying that he blows it away when he starts, but if we're going to get him back to being Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think we've got to have him play 60 minutes on a fairly regular basis. So I don't know.
That of course comes down to his fitness with Oxlade-Chamberlain, but I mean, going back to Fabinho. So one interesting note that we kind of came up this week: 27 appearances for Fabinho at center back this season, most of any Liverpool player, more than any of the actual center backs, and just barely ahead of Jordan Henderson, who is now out with injury. So we haven't really gotten to see much of Fabinho at the 6 and then how that affects the midfield. But just from what you've seen from Fabinho, what does it really mean having him in the 6 and how that affects the rest of the midfield?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you've got to have that guy that can win the ball and redistribute quickly. When he's not in there, he doesn't bring as much to the game, in my opinion, from center back. He's a good center back, but he's playing this left-sided center back role. He doesn't quite look comfortable there. And like when he's in the 6, it just gives the other 2 midfielders so much more freedom because you don't feel like they have to cover for the fullbacks quite as much when the fullbacks go forward. The fullbacks feel a little bit more reassured because he'll drop deep in between the 2 center backs, and it's almost like you're playing a 3-man back line. It gives you that freedom, right? For everybody. Everybody in front of him just sort of feels like it's a security blanket. I mean, the guy's going to put in a nasty if he has to, but he'll put in a world-class tackle.
I was gonna say you could be a bit more of a shithouse when you're playing in the midfield because if you do that, Okay, get away with 2 or 3 of those, then it's like, okay, card time. Whatever.
Yeah,
You do that as the last line of defense,
the
that could be a
center back.
penalty.
And it
So,
has been.
and it has been a
We
couple of times
noted
this
that. He's
season.
given away like
He's
3
given away
penalties
multiple
this
penalties
year.
because he's going in and putting in a challenge where it's like, dude, if that's 40
That's
yards
a
out, nobody
midfield
cares.
challenge in the wrong place.
Right. It's a good challenge actually if it's in the midfield because you look at it and it's like, hey, he got a little bit of the ball, it's fine.
Yeah.
Penalty area?
Also, he clipped his heels.
That's
It's not a
penalty.
big deal. It's the center circle. Who
Right.
cares?
Exactly.
You know?
So seeing Fabinho back in his home at the 6, I think would be a great thing to see. But what that affects for the rest of the midfield, I can't get over the fact that it means that Genie can free up and play a little bit more free. Curtis can go and bomb on. Whether it's Thiago, then having the right to not have to worry about busting back all the time. He can actually just go and be a distributor. And especially if Naby Keita comes back in and is fully fit, or Ox when he's at his best. All those guys can just go and join the attack because we haven't really seen the midfielders do that this year. It's been all up to the front 3 to create the goals, and it's clearly not working for anyone not named Mohamed Salah.
No. And coming out of Thiago, right? So we're all having this big debate about Thiago. Is he shit? Is he great? Blah, blah, blah. He's not even himself because he's not even allowed to be himself. He was signed to play a certain role. And because we're not able to play the 4-3-3 the way that we're meant to play it, and we don't have the people around him that he's meant to have around him, he can't even really do the job that he's meant to do because he's playing in a team that's constantly trying to find itself, or is kind of a crappy imitation of itself. You know what I mean? So, like, to me, yeah, you bring Fabinho back. Now, we're asking Gini Wijnaldum to do his Fabinho impression at the 6 right now. He can't do it. But I can tell you one thing that he can do. He can do a pretty decent Jordan Henderson impression, right? Like, he can pull that off. It's much more his game. And then that is essentially the midfield that Thiago was signed to play in, right? If you've got Fabinho and Wijnaldum next to him, he can be more the guy, at least in the sense that he's playing with the 2 guys that he's meant to play with. And we may have to change the formation a bit because of the center back situation. But let's say that we have to go 4-2-3-1. You could put Genie and Fabinho in those holding roles and let Thiago roam. And I think in that situation, you may get a lot more out of him. You can even put him alongside Fabinho, and just knowing that he's got that, like, real ball winner, that steady presence alongside of him, that he doesn't have to come in with these ridiculous challenges. And like, it's just like, help him clean things up, but then we're going to get you the ball and you start to orchestrate. Hey, that might be exactly what he needs. It might be what everybody needs, because you start to do that, you get a little bit better service into the front 3. You know, maybe if you go 4-2-3-1, maybe put Salah central, Mane off the right, you throw Shaqiri on the left, and put Bobby in the 10. And hey, you don't know what that looks like. That could look really great just for a little while, if for no other reason to throw something else at teams.
Look, if for nothing else, if I can go the rest of the season without seeing Fabinho giving away a penalty on a bad challenge in the penalty area, or Thiago putting in a terrible tackle somewhere in the midfield playing as a 6. If I can just get away from that the rest of the season, I'll be happy. Because I'm sick of seeing that.
If I don't see Thiago give away a terrible foul within the first 2
minutes, like the first 3 minutes of the game, and he picks up a card, and you're just like, do it again.
Just like, your first challenge of the game was fucking awful, man.
But that's sometimes the challenge of him having to play the 6 alone, because even when he played that deeper role going back to Bayern, it was usually in a double pivot, or they would play with like a 3 at the back type situation. It wouldn't be you're there in the 6. You've got 2 center backs who are also inexperienced, by the way. Good luck. Go take them on. Oh, and it's a team that's actually playing at you and coming at you. It's not just a team that's sitting back. So, like, he has not really had to play like this, where he's being asked to be the Lord and Savior, and it's like, that's not his role at all.
And he's playing in a team that isn't having to chop and change every game due to somebody else falling apart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's the fact that we've had so many different center back pairings. Look, you can't, if you've ever played the game, you can't ever look at that and go, it's not something that they think about. Of course it is. Of course it is. You're talking about the spine of the team is constantly changing. Like, everyone's thinking about it. Everybody doesn't trust it.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling like anxiety about it. Guaranteed. So yeah, I just, for him, it's like, I think just Fabinho being in that role that he's supposed to be in, I think it'll just create stability for everybody. It's going to take a little bit of pressure off those center backs because they're going to feel like, all right, this guy's got our back, if nothing else. You know what I mean? Like if everybody else goes forward, this dude will drop back in and he'll help us out. And like, you just have to trust these center backs too. And you got to let Fabinho be Fabinho. We've got to stop trying to like make makeshift things. And I just think it's not working. So for me, I'd love to see Fabinho back in the six.
Yeah, Fabinho is the ultimate destroyer in midfield. That's what he was brought in to do, is to mess stuff up for the other team. So if you're trying to bring in young center backs, inexperienced center backs, it does make sense to have a good destroyer out in front of them, especially if the alternate is you take that destroyer out and then he becomes one of your inexperienced center backs. And again, Fabinho's been okay as a center back, but he hasn't been Virgil van Dijk. He's not Virgil van Dijk. He can't be Virgil van Dijk. So at that point, what you're losing from the midfield is not a gain in the defense. It's kind of treading water in the defense, and then you're dropping way off in the midfield. So to that point, I think it makes so much more sense having him at the 6.
Yeah, and like, I'd rather drown in defense but be boss in midfield.
That's where those games have been lost for Liverpool a lot this season. When you look at the midfield, right, one of the things we were talking about off air was that in the last couple of seasons, Liverpool went from being a team of a bunch of dudes, a bunch of little guys, to being a towering, tall, big midfield with Fabinho and Henderson specifically. And then with Wijnaldum or with even Milner, Jones can bring that to you a little bit more of a physical presence in the midfield. And this season, it's been a lot shorter, obviously, and mismatch pieces, trying to figure out who goes where. So when you look at this team right now for Liverpool, they're not just short on men, but they're literally shorter this season, where you're missing a lot of height.
We have a big height problem. I mean, so going back to 2017, you think about that squad and who was in it. You know, Coutinho's in there, short guy. You know, Salah and Mane were in there. Both, neither one's very tall. Mm-hmm. You know, Bobby was still around, but you're looking at your big dudes were Hendo at 6'1", Lovren I think was 6'1", and then Matip was like the guy that was 6'4", and Emre Can would come in and out of things, and he was over 6 feet tall.
Yep.
But aside from that, so they went out and they got Virgil van Dijk. That brings a towering 6'4" super athlete into the squad. Joe Gomez starts making regular appearances. I think he's 6'2"?
6'2", yeah.
6'2", yeah. So that brings another big boy in, and he's fast as shit. Allows Hendo to move into the midfield, and then before you know it, they bring in Fabinho. And now there's another 6'3" guy. So on set pieces, you had all these big bodies that you could throw into these games, right? And it made a huge difference. Last year we won, I don't even know how many set pieces. And a lot of them weren't necessarily Virgil van Dijk or Fabinho winning them. But it was them pulling 2 or 3 defenders to them to make sure that they got marked. And Bobby Firmino's at the back post by himself.
Yeah.
And he's burying headers. You know, that set pieces wasn't a bad part of Mane and Bobby's game, right? It was actually a place where they got goals from. This year, not happening. We've seen 1 goal from Bobby on a set piece. That was the Tottenham match. And that's the last, I think
that is the last corner that they won for a goal.
Yeah. And that was December. That was like December 16th. So we've gone 2 months without even getting on the end of a corner. Yeah. Mane is getting marked much tighter now because nobody's really scared of the other threats. And so, I want to get some height back into the squad. And, if that means sacrificing, I don't know how you do it, but I really think you've got to at least get Fabinho in there on a regular basis. And just even just a big body in the midfield, like a Vieira type. It just makes a difference. Like when you're coming up the pitch and you see this big guy coming at you, you're more inclined to want to move the ball quickly, or and you're more inclined to make mistakes. Like he's going to put in a big crunching tackle on you. It has an effect on the other team's mentality about how they go forward, how they move the ball through the midfield. Maybe just kick it over him is what you're thinking.
Well, it makes a big difference if you're even just only talking about Fabinho. It makes a difference when you're facing him and he's coming to you and is in your face compared to oh, I've got 10, 15 yards. There he is on the back line. Now I can figure out what I want to do with him. Like, those are two
Exactly.
totally different scenarios. And when he's in the midfield, he's initiating a lot of those challenges. He can be aggressive, but when he's the last line of defense, he has to stay off. And it goes against his natural tendency
Exactly.
to want to go and mess stuff up. Because when you see defenders who are overly aggressive, like we've seen it a little bit with Kabak this season. We've obviously seen it with Dejan Lovren, but then you've seen a little bit with Fabinho this season. You can get yourself out of position, make one step too many, and all of a sudden you're beat and nobody's behind you because you are the last line of defense. So
Yeah.
it makes more sense to have him in that aggressor role in the midfield. And one last thing on the height. I'm glad that you pointed out the fact that it's not just having Virgil van Dijk in there as a target man on those set pieces, but it's also the fact that he drags a lot of attention to him. Gareth Southgate himself, going back to the 2018 World Cup, he pointed out, because England were very successful on their set pieces, he pointed out that a set piece is just like an out of bounds play in basketball. And one of the things about out of bounds plays, because you don't have a lot of space, the defense is all there, it's all about precise movement and working together, and one thing affects the other. So if it's a what's called a rub route where one person, sets a little screen for the next person, then that is going to create a big difference. It's all of those intricate movements and having those big bodies to free up people. So it could be like, if you look at the NBA, you could have a big center who's sitting there right in the middle. Or if that center is there and he's dragging two people to him because he's 7 feet tall, yeah, the person next to him is probably going to be wide open. It's stuff like that you have to remember on those set pieces that Liverpool are missing, not just the body and the guy who's going to score the goals himself, but all the attention that he's going to drag to him. And with Liverpool on the set pieces this season, I mean, you said it yourself. It's been over 2 months. They've been, quite frankly, pathetic on set pieces, attacking wise, and defending. They haven't been much better. A lot of those goals that they've given up at last minute, it's been a scramble drill on a penalty, or excuse me, on a corner or a long free kick.
Yeah.
That's a
No,
lot.
I mean,
That's a
just
lot of
look
what's
at
happened.
just look at the number of set piece goals that we scored over seasons, and then how many we've scored this season. And it's a huge drop off. And it's no mystery why. I mean, we're just missing the pieces that make our set piece plays functional.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I'm kind of behind the idea of Phillips. One, defending set pieces. The kid, I don't know. I gotta find out the exact percentage, but I feel like he wins like over 90% of his aerial duels. So defending corners and set pieces, we become a lot stronger with him in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, he can offer you something going forward. And we did get him on the end of one set piece in the Everton game. He put it into the side netting because he was kind of falling forward onto it. But nonetheless, it does at least give you a target man to go, okay, see if you can get it up on his big ass head. And then maybe he can just flick it towards goal. If nothing else, it's kind of a Burnley / Newcastle type strategy. But hey, if it can score you a couple of goals, if you came out at the end of the season and that Phillips had scored 3 set piece goals, that's a wild success to me.
Oh yeah,
because it's 3 more than we've had in the last 10 games.
But yeah, you don't need him to even necessarily score the goals, like you said. Just be a target man. Just have somebody who's tall, who can knock the ball down, and then if the ball's loose in the box, what's going to happen? Scramble. I would much rather see a scramble than a ball that's cleared out, because we've been seeing that for the last 2.5 months.
And this thing, like, you take him, he goes up there. He's what, 6'3", I think.
Yeah,
they got to account for him. You can't leave him unmarked. I mean, you've got to put a body on him, and then but if you've got him and Fabinho in there, okay, that's at least 2 big bodies. All right, so and then let's say you've got Kabak as well. So he's 6'1". He's not small. He's about Henderson's size.
He's 6'1", but he's also pretty athletic. He can climb the ladder, as they say.
Yeah, you've seen his vertical leap.
Yeah, he's got a good leap.
So I'm like, that's 3 guys you kind of account for. So maybe at that point, then it does become harder to account for Mane and Bobby, and maybe they can get a few set piece goals, because it's, they're both struggling something awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing about Liverpool this season. I know Andrew hates it when we talk XG and stats and such, but I'm going to just slip one in right quick, right? So it's not going to go too far into it, but the XG for Liverpool last season was +4. This season, -4. Well, actually, it was +6 last year, -4 this year. So it's just Liverpool haven't gotten those bounces in the same way they've gotten last year. And sometimes it's a scrambled drill off of a corner where you don't really expect a goal to come out of it, but oh, now a dude is just free because the ball slipped through somebody's feet, and there it is. Like those kinds of things can happen when you just when you take your chances. So for Liverpool, I think we do want to see a little bit more of that, where it's just create your own luck. I think that's all that we're really saying with this, where it's like you're not expecting Nat Phillips to go in and head in 5 goals the rest of the season, but having him in there might be, oh, he has a flick on that he didn't really mean because he was trying to head it on goal, but he's big and he's goofy, and it falls to Salah at the end. Like that could happen. We've seen that happen actually. That not exact scenario.
It literally just it took a weird deflection off of his big noggin.
Yeah.
And then it lands to Genie, who just slotted it.
But the point is, if that same position, but the point is, if that same position is held by a dude who's 5'10", you're not going to make that happen. Like that's kind of the thing. You don't have a chance at that point.
Last year we won so many games where it's like, oh, they kind of won that ugly. But did I care? No, it was the same 3 points. I don't care. I'm like, get back to winning ugly. I don't care if you look like you had an ugly game plan, you were in 10th place. If you don't start scoring some goals, we're gonna be in 10th place. So I don't care. Just win ugly. Do what you got to do. It doesn't all have to be poetry in motion, beautiful football all the time. We'll get back to that at some point. I do believe, even with the guys that we have now, we have moments where it's gorgeous football. You saw the goal against Leicester. Well, it's fantastic. Those things will happen, but we also need some really ugly ones to go in and just not care that it was ugly.
Yeah. we haven't really seen too many ugly goals this season, so I think that would certainly do Liverpool some good. All right, so as we're on kind of working our way forward from the back to the front for Liverpool, let's go and have a little conversation on Thiago. So Thiago, his season has been obviously up and down. Coming into the year, he's looked at as the missing piece, to the point where Wayne Rooney went on record to say, if they bring in Thiago, Liverpool win the league. Well, Liverpool looked pretty damn good in the first couple of appearances against Chelsea and Everton, and then Virgil van Dijk gets hurt in the Everton game, and Thiago is hurt in the Everton game. We don't see him again until, December. So now that we've seen Thiago back for long enough, month and a half of him, there's a number of people criticizing him, specifically saying the one critique in particular is that he slows down Liverpool. He slows down the attack. Not necessarily getting into any love-hate relationship with, what Thiago does or anything like that. Just focusing on that. Do you think he slows down Liverpool and slows down their attack, that he's the reason that that's happened this year?
Well, we didn't bring him in to lump long balls, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody if he's trying to be more technical, right? And to connect passes in the midfield. It's literally what you signed him to do.
Yeah.
You literally signed him to play these tight passing lanes and help unlock teams when they were parking the bus, right? That's part of why he came in. Okay, well, right now we're having to play this completely other way, and it doesn't necessarily suit him. As we said, he's been out half the season. He's out for 2 months. He's not playing with the guys around him that he was supposed to be playing with. There isn't the same type of chemistry with the guys that he is playing with at the moment. He doesn't slow us down. By nature, we are slowed down because of the situation that we're in. That's really what it comes down to. He's the new piece, so people are pinning it on him. Mm-hmm. But it's not necessarily him. It's just the nature of the personnel changes. The people who helped us tick over and really go fast when we needed to go fast aren't there. Virgil van Dijk, I don't know how many times he'd win the ball and then switch the play with a 40-yard ball. Much that speeds up the game for the opponent. It puts everybody on the back heel and they're immediately in panic mode. I mean, one of the most incredible goals I've ever seen, I was lucky enough to see in person, was Mo Salah's goal against Chelsea. Do you know where it starts? Virgil van Dijk.
Right at midfield.
Pings
perfect
the ball.
To his feet. Pinged him.
Mo Salah's feet. Mm-hmm. We don't have these players in there now. And so especially when we're playing low block sides, they're throwing 6-7 guys back before, like, by the time we even break, and you're like, well, just run at them. Well, okay, yeah, you could just run at them. We could try that. But when we try that, we haven't been successful. We've got Mo and Mane up there isolated, running and shooting into walls. It's the same thing over and over again. They end up having to recover the ball, shift it out wide. Here we go, the same old bullshit. And we're all we feel like we've all seen this game. I don't know how many times now, right? We keep saying it. It's like I'm watching the same game over and over and over again. It's not down to Thiago. It's just the changing nature of a group that's missing so many of the pieces that made it click before. And that's part of why I keep coming back to this shape change, because look, the folks that made that work, they're not going to play this season. We've got a minimum of 14 games left. I'd like us to win some of those. So, like, it's not. Let's find a way to get Thiago doing what he was meant to do, right? Because he's not able to do it right now. He's having to account for all these other things. He's having to cover fullbacks that, I don't think that's what his initial plan was meant for. Because there's just a lack of trust back, and there's this constant, like, in the midfield, everybody's rushing back all the time. We go into attack. If they get forward enough so that they're contributing to the attack, as soon as we lose the ball, everybody's rushing back because they're afraid that these defenders are going to get burned or whatever it is. I think we just got to let it go and just trust the defenders and just play whatever system Klopp says. If he says we got to play 4-3-3, then hey, trust these guys to do their jobs. I don't know what to say. It's like at some point you can't hold everybody's hand. You just gotta fucking go for it,
right?
And be yourselves.
Something's going to change here, right? So either if you're going to get Fabinho and Henderson out into the midfield, that middle center back spot has to be something different, right? So I think you can go with Nat Phillips, because I do think that he's earned the right. And if you're just asking him to play sweeper and really give you another tall body on set pieces, which is something that we've been kind of beat up on this year a little bit. We've given up, I think in that Tompkins Times article, it said something like 15 or 16 or I can't remember what the number of set piece goals, but it's well more than last year. And we're not scoring as many either, but because we're missing the height of Virgil van Dijk, of Joe Gomez, and it's just not quite the same. So I think you could put Phillips in there. It's going to help protect you on when we're defending set pieces. I think he's done enough to kind of earn it. He'd be more like a sweeper role, kind of like a last man back sort of thing. You're not expecting a whole lot out of him going forward. And if you have Fabinho kind of in front of him playing a defensive midfield role, it's really more almost like a destroyer. So in my opinion, I think that could really work out. On each side, you'd have Thiago and Hendo. You'd have Trent and Robbo on the flanks. And then we've talked a lot about where Mo and Mane are getting the ball, right? They're getting it far too out wide, chalk on their boots. They need, where they've had a lot of success, where they played really well against West Ham, was they were getting the ball, and against Tottenham as well, they were getting the ball more centrally. By making them more of an attacking two, like two center forwards, basically, we can get them the ball in a little bit of a different area. Now, you can still play gegenpressing in this shape, and you can still have a lot of different passing lanes, but it's something new that opponents haven't seen us do before.
I think that's what's so staggering for a lot of people, because I think even us, we expected, okay, Virgil van Dijk goes out, another center back goes down. We were kind of expecting it would be, all right, well, Liverpool, they'll just turn up the attack and then the defense will suffer, but it'll be a 4-3 win for Liverpool. Or we were expecting high scoring games on both ends, both in the attack and the other team scoring as well. And other than the FA Cup against United, we have not seen that whatsoever. So, I mean, do you think that that's a function of it, maybe, that people had the expectation that Liverpool's attack would just, okay, keep going, and then the defense would suffer, but because it hasn't worked out like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. And it doesn't help that the attack is struggling so bad, that Bobby Firmino's not been himself, that Sadio Mane has not been himself, that Mo Salah has not been very efficient. He's got the most goals in the league, but let's be honest, he could have a lot more. Not to be a dick, and I'm not saying I don't appreciate what Mo does. He's one of the best attackers on the planet. But we'd be lying to ourselves if we said that he hadn't missed quite a few chances. And like, you take the what game was it? I think it was maybe the Brighton game We had that set piece. Thiago cleverly flicks it over the top, and for whatever reason, Bobby.
Oh, Firmino takes a touch and then takes another touch, and
Yeah.
like that was one that seemed pretty clear. Like, just take that first time.
Just take the fucking first time shot. And 2 years ago, you had the confidence to do that.
To the point. Well, not even years ago. How about just a couple of games ago against Crystal Palace, where Firmino's like going and he's like first touch outside of the boot, burying it. Like that was something we saw from Firmino literally weeks ago. So it's been a season like that where you'll see a goal of the year candidate one end, and then the next it's like, why don't you want to shoot? Just go and just shoot.
Just take the shot, bro.
Take the shot. Shoot your shot, homie. So I think there's been a little bit of that with Liverpool this season. But yeah, it was just interesting that you brought up that one with Thiago sending the ball over the top on a quick little free kick. It was just outside the penalty area. There was a side-by-side that was put up because he did the same thing at Bayern last year. And Thomas Muller, first time, doesn't catch all of it. He basically
got enough of it.
But because it catches everyone off guard, it's a goal.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like there are moments of brilliance that Thiago has brought to the team that don't even really get noticed because it didn't result in anything. Yeah. It's hard to remember it when it didn't result in anything, and then 10 minutes
he should have had basically the pass before they pass for the winner in the Merseyside derby at Everton, but well, they got VAR'd.
Well, we got VAR'd out of it, and like that's there's so many factors at play this year, but I don't blame him for anything. I've seen him pull a nice little move out of it, out of a hat, and then switch the ball 35 yards onto somebody's front foot, and you're like, hey.
But if that's just in the middle of an action where there's now 10 more passes and nothing.
Well, and the problem is
no one remembers that. Like if you have a beautiful switch to send it out wide, lands right at the feet of Trent Alexander-Arnold, he sends it back to the midfield, and then Wijnaldum loses the ball. Like nobody remembers that sequence.
Or he had one a couple weeks ago, and he switched it over to Mane. Mane gets it. He cuts in. He tries a little play. Defense breaks it up, and then they go down the field. Right. Well, no one's going to remember that. Like it's hard to unless you're sitting there going, okay, like accumulatively keeping score on someone's performance, right? And there's like people who do that to a fault, and then there's people who don't do that at all. And these people like to fight on Twitter.
And they're very loud.
They're very loud. And it's like, look, the truth is in the middle somewhere, folks. Like Thiago is not perfect, and he's not like defensively, he's been a sham at times. And he has given all away.
There's also been some times where it's like you look at him winning the ball back, and it's like, oh wow, how did he get that one back? And he does have, the fluid hips. He is able to stretch for some balls. I'm like, how did he get there? And it's
a balance.
He could jump a lot higher than I thought too. He's won some aerial duels, and I'm just like, dude, you are 5 inches shorter than that guy. How did you get that? So as much as we want to sit here and say he is not the perfect be all end all that I think some people expected him to be, he's a damn good footballer.
And that was the thing. That was the thing is like all the Twitter hype is like I get concerned about players when there's a lot of Twitter hype. I'm like, first time he's ever played in England.
Yeah, to that end though. I was just gonna say to that end, does that make it kind of perfect for Diogo Jota, who actually did play in England but didn't come in with nearly as much hype as Thiago, and then he hits the ground running. Like Jota was the afterthought, and then he's like, oh wow, he scores goals, and also you have to remember too. The guys who score goals, they get more love than the dudes who don't. And
Well, and Thiago was a transfer saga. Went on for months. Was it going to happen? Wasn't it going to happen? So much anticipation. People talking about how incredible he is. He gets man of the match in a Champions League final, in which he's crowned, European champion, and then the thing finally happens, and there's all this expectation around it, and blah blah. And there's this huge celebration, and there's memes. And
we see him for 75 minutes before he gets hurt.
Exactly. And then for Jota, like he came in the day after that, and everybody was like, "Oh, I didn't even know this was going to happen." Cool.
Oh no! There was also some people. Don't forget. There was also some people because remember who they were looking at. When I say they, Twitter sphere was considering Liverpool going after 2 guys. One from Watford, Ismaila Sarr, because he had a great game against Liverpool last year. But then the other was Adama Traore. So everyone was like, oh, you got the other winger from Wolves. What are you guys doing here? And then it turns out, oh, he's really good. Okay, we get it.
He's a perfect Klopp player. And like that's the thing is like when you don't heap a bunch of like you don't have any expectations out of something, and it's like I don't know why we can't just look at things the same way with the current center backs. I mean, I think actually I take that back because I think a lot of us are looking at things that way with the current center backs.
I think
Like,
it's
I
a
don't
free
have-
hit for them mostly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a free hit. Like if Kabak doesn't turn out to be anything, I'm like, well, he's a child who played 1 year at Schalke and then was playing another year.
You don't
when
even
we were
have
about
to
to
keep
get
him.
relegated.
He's only here on
We
loan.
bought him.
I mean, you don't even have to.
And
say that
we
he's
don't
your
even
guy
have
for the
to
future.
buy
You
him.
can
Like,
get rid
it's
of
a
him.
free.
Yeah.
Just try it out, see what happens. If he turns out to be talented, you get him on a cheap.
Yeah.
You 18 million for a player of 20 years old and who's had, he's got some decent pedigree behind him.
And is going to be a first teamer. Yeah.
He's going to play first team football somewhere.
Yeah.
So hey, like that's a pretty good deal. Ben Davis is almost free to me. Like just who cares? Try it.
Yeah, like
Worst
Andrew would
thing
say, bus fare. Bus fare.
is legit. Matt Phillips is legit free because he's coming out of your academy. So like, yeah, like who cares? Just think of it the same way. Like, don't expect anything, and whatever you get's a bonus.
Yeah. So I think one bonus that could really be one for Liverpool fans this season would be if we see something from the guys who are coming back from injury. Let's start with the midfield with Naby Keita, because Keita, obviously, we know, very expensive player coming in. What was it? The third most expensive Liverpool signing of all time. But when you look at Naby Keita, he's a player that when he has been healthy, has been dynamic. He has been the exact kind of player Liverpool could use right now, taking on players 1v1, beating them, going and putting in a nice challenge, bringing you a lot of energy, and just doing a lot of unpredictable, some random shit on the football pitch that it feels like Liverpool could use right now. So
he's a Tasmanian devil.
He's a Tasmanian devil, right? Best case scenario, he comes back, and let's not even say he plays in all the games. Let's just say he gives you every other. But having the reestablishing of Naby Keita, and he's, say, in a couple matches back to where he was at the end of last year when he looked dynamic. What does that do for this Liverpool team?
Oh, it's a huge lift. Like if out of 14 games left, if you can, in the minimum 14, but let's just say it's 14. If you can appear in eight of them, I'll be happy. And honestly, he's just such a, like you said, the energy. He ain't afraid to put in a foot. He ain't afraid to try something, right? So like take that goal that he scores against Chelsea the night that we lift the trophy. I mean, I felt like it came out of nowhere. And he's the perfect player for just like picking the ball up and doing something quickly. We need that kind of thing right now. And we were talking about how much we've slowed down. Naby Keita can speed us up again. He can kick it up a gear. He can dribble past 2 or 3 people because
he does have the fastest goal in Liverpool's Premier League history, by the way. Had that against who was it? It was 3 years ago now, actually. Well, no, 2 years ago. But it was against the team that got relegated. It was Huddersfield.
Okay.
He scored it. What was it, 30 seconds in or something like that?
It was off the kickoff. Like
it was off the kickoff. He presses, wins the ball off the press, goes and scores a goal.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that he can do for you, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a quick thinker. He's got that. He's not, like we said, he's not afraid of physical play. So he's going to win the ball. He's going to put in challenges. He's an accurate passer. Like the part of the reason they bought him was the percentage of passes that he completes. I think was one of the stats that really attracted them to him. Plus the distance covered. But like when you look at his highlights from Red Bull Leipzig, he's completing passes all over the pitch. And right now we just need somebody who could do that kind of thing, like slip a ball through in the final third to just free somebody up, or just be a wild card. Like you legit, it feels a little bit right now like when we get the ball on the edge of the opponent's 18-yard box, everybody knows what's going to happen.
They know how to defend it.
Yeah. Exactly. Naby Keita comes in, I guarantee you there's going to be some wild card shit going on. I have no idea what's going to happen because he's that kind of player. Like he's just going to try something that he probably shouldn't try, but he's going to pull it off. You know what I mean? Like on paper,
he's talented enough to make it happen, though.
Exactly, because like statistically speaking, that's not going to come off.
That's a terrible idea, but you can do it, dude, because you're that good.
Exactly, and like, that's why we need him. So that's why I really hope he can stay healthy just for once. They didn't rush him back from injury because he just kept hurting himself again.
Yeah.
But if he's coming back this time and he's legit supposed to be like good to go, like no, he's fully healed, he's ready. It's going to be a big lift. And it's just going to take a lot of pressure off guys like Genie, off Curtis Jones, off Thiago. Like, I think Thiago will enjoy playing with this player, just because it's going to give him, like, it's going to give the opponents something on the other side of that midfield that they have to be just as equally as concerned.
Well, and it's two different dynamics too, because Thiago, he seems like a player where it's like he wants to be on the ball, where he gets to be chill and he gets to be cool. I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna hit you up. And Naby Keita is literally Red Bull, not Red Bull Leipzig, but he's like a shot of Red Bull. And he's just like, he's like, that's Naby Keita. He wants to be that go. He is the energizer buddy. So I think they actually complement each other really well. If they're playing as the 2-8s with Fabinho behind them, you get one guy who's really energetic and is go at it. He's going to take you on. He's going to do something that you don't expect. And then you've got the smooth, elegant Thiago. Like, that's a peanut butter and jelly combination, if you ask me, man. I really want to see that.
I'd like to see it too. I mean, I'd like to see it also, like a healthy Ox with Thiago. You know, like, I don't think Ox is right, but if he could ever get back to his old self, you know, he had that ability to drive and create things. But Naby Keita is more of a better passer, somebody that can kind of unlock things for other people as well as create for himself.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to his return. I hope that he can play. If he doesn't play Sunday, maybe he can play I think it's Tuesday.
They next play Thursday against Chelsea.
Oh, Thursday, right? Yeah. And hey, he likes scoring goals against Chelsea.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So one thing I do want to kind of mention, just before we get into Diogo Jota, Liverpool have shown, at the very least, over the last few guys who have come back from injury, a reluctance to just either throw them back in or rush them back, even as they're in the middle of an injury crisis. It seems like that's kind of been the MO for the team, especially getting guys back fit. It's not just getting them back in and hope you're good to go and we'll see how it goes, but really being methodical about it, taking their time in the approach. I know that's been the case with Fabinho because he's been in contention. What's it been, the last 2-3 matches? Naby Keita, he's been available for 2 matches now, hasn't played in either. And Diogo Jota, even though he is very likely to be available for Sunday, don't expect to see him start. But just overall, even as Liverpool are in the middle of a injury crisis right now, I mean, how do you feel about that approach, kind of taking their time getting guys back?
You know, it's unfortunate, but I think it's something he has to do. Like, you've got to make sure. We've seen the impact of recurring injuries, right? And I can remember, like, one of the ones that really, like, burned us back in the day was when they kept rushing Gerrard back on the groin thing, and he kept getting hurt. He kept reoccurring. And there was a point where we were like, I don't know about Stevie's future at all anymore. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be right. I don't know if this could be like the end of his career. And it was scary for a minute because we're like, this is our most important player. Like, this is somebody that, like, changes everything when he's in there. I think you've just got to let injuries heal.
Yeah.
It sucks, but, you know, bodies take time when they're damaged to come back to 100%. And then you've got a guy who's been sitting around, you know, maybe he's been working out, but working out and running around on a practice pitch, even if you're in full training, it's not the same thing as a game. It just doesn't hold the same intensity. And it's, you know, you've got to get them up to a place where they can even compete and hold the intensity for a long enough time to play 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you've got to build from there. And it just takes time. I'm fine with it. Do the right thing. If you can keep Naby Keita, Fabinho, and Diogo Jota on the pitch for the rest of the season, I like our chances to make top 4.
I feel a lot better.
I feel
a lot better
like
right away.
We will find a way. Somewhere in there, we're going to win, I'd say, 10 of the last 13 games. It makes that big of a difference.
But I do agree.
That's 30 points. That's 70 points.
And here's the thing, though.
Here's the thing. Top 4, I don't know.
They haven't been
to be in the conversation.
That's the thing, though. They haven't been that far off that it's unrealistic to say they could go on a streak. They've been right there, and those are 3 world-class players you just mentioned.
And this is what we talked about the other day, right? Like, and this is why it's so frustrating. then it's come up with the Rory Smith piece about, banging your head against the wall, doing the same thing over and over again. And he's 100% right. I've been saying it for a while.
Yeah.
But to be kind of balanced, you're right. Like, they're not far off. It's not like they're playing terribly for 90 minutes. They played well for 60,
70, sometimes even 80.
And then something goes wrong and there's a breakdown somewhere. And yes, you do need to change it because you need to get to something that you can play for 90 minutes, or you need to get to something that you can just create more chances and score more goals, if nothing else. Like, if you're going to give them up, you've got to at least score more.
Yep.
And right now the attack looks a little bit stifled, and that's kind of been going on for a while. So I still think there's an argument to change it. But at the same time, like, even just bringing back these three guys, and let's just say that we didn't change, these three guys make enough of a difference when they're healthy that I think we become more effective, and you do score more goals, and it does become harder for other teams to get into the match and create their own goals, with Fabinho in the game. That's why I'm like, it's massive that you get it right, and then they're there for those 14 games. And if honestly, if they're there in that Champions League match, we've got 16 games left, at least, because we're going to the quarterfinals. We're up 2-0. I like our chances, but if we got full bodies in there, like our closer to our full squad, we're going to be there.
Yeah, it definitely does give you a lot of encouragement when you look at those guys coming back and where they are right now. It helps. You really do hope that it is one of those things where that long-term play of trying to get guys back to fitness, it pays off, and then you see those dividends in the rest of the season. That would be really impressive, because I know if I were in that position, I would have been rushing those guys back. Oh, you only got one leg? You can hop around on one leg. Get back out there. Like, I would be the person who's trying to rush back Virgil van Dijk right now. Like, oh, you can be on grass? All right, so you're gonna be good for Sunday, right? Like, I think the temptation,
I guarantee you,
there, and it is there. Yeah, I mean, of course but
they're like, oh, you're out here now. That's it. Suit up.
So suit up. But it's. I think the temptation has been there to try to rush these guys back, but you would have a lot more situations like Joel Matip if that were the case, where he's out and then he's back, and then he's out and then he's back, and then he's out the rest of the season. So
we've seen
you don't want any more guys
back.
To be like that. You want him to be the last.
We saw Ox come back from a small thing last year too early and ended up getting hurt again. And this year he took his time, and he hasn't quite returned to it, but he's been available. Yeah. At least he's been consistently available. I don't think that Klopp feels that he's quite right, and that's fine. But he's in training and he's available. And look, if you can play him into form to being something like the player that he was, you've got another great player on your hands. So I just think you got to manage injuries intelligently. We've got a world-class medical staff over the last few years that they paid a lot of money to bring in. So you just got to trust them. If they say that they got to wait, then just let them wait. With Jota, it took a lot longer than we thought. It took another month, and that hurt. That month, a lot of shit happened. That sucked.
And even initially, we were thinking, oh, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, because we don't remember seeing a nasty challenge or anything like that. And then it turns out, no, it's going to be a couple months. And then it turns out, oh, it's damn near 4.
Originally, we had hoped he could appear against City.
Right.
Now, here we are. It's disaster time. That 10-game run that we said would define our season kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, well, you think about when he went out against Midtjylland, you have the Spurs game is a couple weeks after that, and then basically from there, that's when the season becomes what it's become. So having Diogo Jota in those games, that would have made a huge difference. But I do think
off the bench is
just coming off the bench, of course.
Yeah, I mean, or even whether he starts or whatever, because if he starts, then let's say you pop Mo onto the bench. Well, having Mohamed Salah come off the bench completely changes the dynamic of the game for the opposition. Like, that just completely, whatever happened for the 60 minutes prior just went out the fucking window.
Yep.
And now the best goal scorer in the league is on the pitch. Like, it totally changes everything.
Well, we look at the bench right now, and especially when you look at like the Everton game, you're down 1-0, 75th minute. What are you going to? Shaqiri, Divock Origi, go save us.
The game in any way?
Right. Like
No.
those aren't game-changing players in the same kind
And
of
he didn't
way
even go to
as a Diogo
Ox.
Jota or a Sadio Mane if he was coming off the bench. Even Roberto Firmino, if he's coming off the bench, he looks a lot different than he
Well,
does
and
when he comes on and starts the game.
And let's say that he's coming off the bench, that might be what he needs right now. Maybe he only needs to play a half hour. Maybe it's you're bringing him off the bench, but you're not actually going to play him up top. You're going to play him as part of an attacking four or something. There's a lot of different things that you can do that I think are interesting. It would just because you're getting these guys back and your bench is going to be much more well-rounded. I mean, let's face it, we've had a child appearing on the bench regularly. No one's regularly talked about it, but the kid, I think his name's Kane.
Jake Kane,
yeah. Like we don't talk about it, but this kid's
we don't talk about it because we have no clue who he is.
Yeah,
and he's been there consistently this season.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to.
Like, who is this kid?
He's having to make up the numbers on the bench because we just don't have any other options.
Like, I'm pretty sure he shows up to training like with a little lunchbox full of orange slices. Like, I have no clue who Jake Kane is, but
I'm pretty sure he doesn't even train with the senior team.
He's just there on the bench. Like he trains with the under 23s, and they just say, "Hey,
he's getting to watch.
Jake, are you free on Saturday? Yeah, we're playing Tottenham. We're gonna need you on the bench." But let's just go straight into the attack now. So I think it's fair to say, compared to what we expected, we were expecting the attack to carry this team this season once all the center backs go down, and the attack has been shit. So let's just start with the question I think everyone kind of wants answered. Does Diogo Jota immediately solve that problem?
I don't know. Yeah, I think. Well, one thing is he's just going to give us another look. I don't know if he solves all of our problems, but I'll tell you one thing: it's just going to change the dynamics of the group, which could probably use a little bit of a shakeup at the moment. And he just brings a completely different look in the attack. Like he is the quintessential Klopp player. If you look at a lot of what he does, I think he does a lot of the things Bobby was doing 2 years ago. Like the way he can win, the way he pressures, the way where he wins the ball back, what he then does with it. Yeah, like he's doing a lot of the right things to help us take a little bit of pressure off of Mo and Mane, and then he gets himself into great places to then score goals. And I feel like with Bobby, that's part of what's fallen off is like he's doing some of the gritty work that he was doing, but then he's not doing it as well. And then he's not getting himself in these great positions that he was getting himself into before. And then when he does, he's not been as effective as he was. So I just feel like, by bringing in Jota again, even if you play them as an attacking four, the four of them together, and you just do Thiago, Fabinho, and behind them, you could probably, that's going to still bring a certain level of intensity to the attack and a lot of creativity. I like Jota. As soon as we said we were going to sign him, I was like, that's a big one. It's like, I didn't think we could get him, but that's a Klopp player right there.
Jota was one of those players where I think, at least for me, he went under the radar, but then going back and watching his work at Wolves, you could see it right away. Oh, he's good coming from deep as an attacking mid. Oh, he can play up front. Oh, he can play on the wing. He can play wherever you really want to stick him. And the one thing that I put in the group chat today that I still kind of stand by, at least for what he's looked at as Liverpool, he's not really like a perfect, clean player. Like in the way where it's like you look at him and you just like, oh, I know exactly what he's going to do. It's like he's kind of random. It's like he'll have this one move where it's like, damn, that ball got away from him. Oh, he finished first time off of that heavy touch. Gotcha. Like, it's stuff like that where it's just like, wait, he's holding the ball too. Oh, and there he just found the corner after taking, I thought that was one touch too many. And that's a goal. Like, it's stuff like that with Jota where kind of going back to what we said with Naby Keita, where he does a little bit of the unpredictable. And especially in a season where the largest critique for Liverpool's attack has been they're too damn predictable. So having the unpredictable sounds kind of perfect. Like, even if he's not at his best, just trying something different does sound like a good prospect.
I mean, it'll be like, when these two come in, say they come into a game together, I'm going to say by 40 minutes, the other team's going to just breathe a sigh of relief when the ball goes out wide to Trent. And then you might not want to do that. It might not be the time to breathe a sigh of relief, but you let your guard down because you think, well, this is what we prepared for. And then he puts in a world-class cross, and there's a maniac running in on the other end in Jota. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. He is a little bit of a wild card. I like that about him too. But he's just got so much skill, but so much physicality at the same time. Like, he'll run through a wall for you. Yeah, I'm excited. It's been one that I was like, oh, when's he coming back? Come on, another 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Every press conference, like, it was 2 weeks 2 weeks ago. So
I think that was so disheartening when at the beginning of February, we're expecting like he's going to be back any day now. And the Klopp says, yeah, he's going to be a couple of weeks and then he'll train and we'll see from there. And it's just like, but you said it was going to be like 2 months, like 3 months ago. What happened? So yeah, that's been a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that, when he gets back, he's at full speed. It might take him a few games, and you just bring him off the bench. But just even having that option off the bench, like a game-changing option for 30 minutes, we just don't even have it right now.
That's the thing you got to remember too, like, especially when it comes to both him and Keita. You don't have to be brilliant for 90 minutes if you're coming in and playing the last 15. We just need you to do one thing that's good, and that could make or break the game.
Just
and
create a spark.
Jota is totally capable of that. He's already done that. Like when they first brought him in, think back to like the Sheffield United game, the first time around. He comes in and he's just like, I'm gonna go make a play against Arsenal. Yeah, I'm gonna go make a play. Like that's kind of all they need him to do. Just make a play. Doesn't have to be brilliant. He doesn't have to bring in some kind of different dynamic. Just make one play. That's all.
Yeah.
He could do that.
And I think that already there was some chemistry. They had started to work him into the squad where there was some chemistry. If you can pick that up where it left off. Yeah.
Yeah, and think back to the City game, because I think there is something to what you were saying with having the 4 attackers in there, where you saw that game the first time around against City. It was kind of a 4-4-2, 4-2-4 type look without the ball, where they had Jota and Firmino up front, and they had Sadio Mane, and they had Salah. And even though it didn't necessarily turn into goals, it put a lot of pressure on City, where they really had to work hard to get the ball up the pitch. And that's something where, against the bigger teams especially, that could be a nice little thing to have, where you've got 2 guys pressing at the front, and then you don't have to ask as much from Salah or as much from Mane, or you kind of interchange them and then say, all right, well, for the next 15 minutes, Mo, Bobby, you guys are going to be the guys pressing. All right, now Sadio, you and Diogo, you guys are going to be the guys pressing. Like, it gives you that option to just do different things and have different looks throughout the course of the game, just with all those same guys out there. Because, I mean, all 4 of them can play in a midfield type spot if you're going a 4-4-2. All 4 of them can play as kind of a striker. All 4 of them can play on the wings. Yeah, I like seeing that. I like seeing that kind of fluidity throughout the attack.
That's the big thing to me, is that you can go, okay, Mo go central, Diogo Jota come over here, play on the right wing. Now, instead of that, so that left back is looking at a guy, instead of, he's gonna cut in at some point, right? Like he's got to get it onto his left foot. Now he's facing a guy that he doesn't know. I haven't studied him as much for my position, for one thing. And second of all, he can go on. He's probably going to try to go by me because he's going to try to keep it on his right foot. But if he cuts back on his left, he's not that bad either. So now I just don't know. And so then Mo's central, where we know that when he gets the ball there, he's a little bit more dangerous. And he's a handful for center backs, because if the ball gets through you, say there's a through ball, do you want to get into a foot race with Mo Salah? I don't. Like, if I'm a center back in the print, like, I don't care who you are. Not really. If I'm Virgil van Dijk, I'm looking at it and going, I don't really want to get into a foot race with Mo Salah, just because he's got a world-class touch, he's fast as shit, and he only needs a little bit of space to finish.
Well, not just that, but even if you do catch up, I mean, he's strong enough. You're not going to knock him off the ball all that easy. Like,
no, and then like he's got the moves so that he could just let you blow by, cut back in or whatever. He's got moves, like, and if he's in a central position, it's not as kind of canned. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, when he gets the ball in the wing, I was like, this is like a canned, a moment straight out of like a script or something. Like,
yeah,
goes to his right, and here comes the cut back, And he's gonna try to shoot.
It's either cut back or you lay it to the player coming behind him in Trent. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
It's either the overlap or I'm cutting in myself.
And like they've tried it at times. Like, okay, so last season, at the beginning of the season, they actually did this with Origi a little bit. They'd start him in the center of the pitch. They let him kind of bruise with these big center backs, and then they'd slide him out to the left wing, and they put Sadio in the middle. And that would be like complete. That would throw teams off, right? Because Sadio Mane is a much different proposition than Divock Origi, right? So, and then, but for that right back too, you saw it in, like, I think it was the game against Norwich where Divock scores. There was another one later in the season where he cuts in and scores, and it was like, I don't think that the fullback necessarily knows he's got this big dude coming out here who's a little unpredictable at times, and also, like, if you give him an inch of space, he can bang a shot. That's the one thing you can say about Divock. Is like, he doesn't need a lot of room to shoot.
No.
If you give it to him, he'll shoot, and he's a pretty good shooter. There's a lot about his game that I don't like, but or that, not that I don't like, but I think is a good fit for Liverpool.
But if there's one thing he's not scared to do.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that he can do, it's like, just give him a little bit of space to shoot, and he'll find a shot, and it'll be a good shot. So, like, for fullbacks, facing him was kind of like, I don't know, he might go towards the end line and cross it in with his left foot. He's done that before. So, again, it brings us more of that again. I think Divock kind of, he doesn't really throw, he doesn't want to do the running necessarily for that left wing role, the stuff that Sadio does. Sadio does a lot of grit and grind out there. Like, it's some dirty work sometimes. Divock's not going to give you that. Jota will do that stuff, though. Jota will give you that all day. So I think, it's going to become much more dynamic if he's 100%.
So my thought for Liverpool, the way to kind of address what's happened this season and go forward is to start the new center backs. So Liverpool obviously went out and bought the two new center backs, Kabak from Schalke and Davies coming in from the lower leagues. They got these dudes for a reason, because they are center backs. They're not guys playing out of position. They are not guys who are there to be just random dudes. They're there to be center backs. So I would say, starting with the Leicester game, you get them both in. And it's not going to be pretty. There are going to be growing pains. But the thought is, you get them in because when you go back to a normal midfield, when you go back to Fabinho and Henderson, and then Thiago with it, or if it's Wijnaldum, or if it's Curtis Jones, or Naby Keita at some point, there's going to be a little bit more solidity, because we've seen in recent games, Liverpool have been dominated in the middle of the park. They have not had any kind of consistency in the midfield, and the front line has suffered for it. So if you get in those two defenders, you get a more regular midfield, your best midfield. Everything else will function a little bit better. Yeah. One last thing on the attack I do want to kind of get into is just the fact you brought it up a few weeks ago when we see the starting position from the front three, because it has become a little bit, rinse repeat, but specifically when you think of your two wingers, when you think of Salah on the right and Mane on the left, you have them playing so far wide, and a little bit is because the fullbacks aren't getting as high up. How might Diogo Jota affect that if he's in there with them, if they are going for? Do you think that might just mean where you get to switch those guys off as like a double nine up there up front or something like that? Or do you think overall you just might see those guys starting to play a little bit more narrow, and specifically for Salah, we know that to be more effective for him?
I hope so. I hope that Jota kind of does a little bit of that. We've seen him play in midfield at times, and we've seen him play more like an attacking mid. And I almost kind of hope that's what the role is when he first comes back, and you do bring Mo and Mane a little bit more narrow. I just think you've got to get them into a different part of the pitch. And if that means making them a strike duo, that's fine with me. I don't care. I just think that you've got to get them out. They are way too wide right now. And they're having to run 15 yards to get to where they can get a shot. When they've been at their best, we look at the Tottenham game, we look at the West Ham game, where were they getting the ball? More central, like within the frame of the 18-yard box, not out here on the sideline, within that space in there, and then making moves at that point.
Like what good does Mohamed Salah do to you if he's torching a guy on the touchline?
Exactly. Well, and like for Sadio, like I just think he's way better centrally. And not that he can't plays from, he's one of the few guys I think at the moment that will definitely run at a defender. But when he's doing it from the touchline, it's kind of limited what he can do. And then if he cuts in to shoot, that's been recognized. Yeah. If he's going towards the end line, he's getting it onto his left foot.
But say he goes to the end line, he uses the touch line, gets around his man, goes to the end line, and is cutting back. We also kind of get into the spot where you could then have to talk about Firmino, where there's been no one there for him to aim at. Where if he's trying to center a ball, who's he squaring it to? Like that's also been a part of the problem this year too.
Yeah, it feels like every time we get a good ball to come into the box, there's no one there to receive it.
Right.
And I like Jota might be the guy that is on the end of a lot of this stuff because he's got kind of a nose for it, I think. Or if you get Salah on there, maybe it's him or whatever. I just want to see like a little bit of something different, because
we know that Mo would like that. If Mo got to be a poacher, he didn't have to create his own. He could just got to go in and just tap in. Like, he would love that.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I can't wait just to see something different.
Yeah,
I really hope it's on Sunday. But if not on Sunday, look, you should still be able to beat Sheffield United. You should be.
Should be.
But we'll see, But if ever, I'll tell you what, we were talking about Phillips being in there. If ever there was a game for Nat Phillips to be in there, it's one where like the opposition is Ollie fucking McBurney. You know what I mean? And like their best goal scorers are their center backs.
Got McGoldrick up front, like
McGoldrick, who is like just a brute. Like this is a Nat Phillips game. This is the game that he's made for. So him and Kabak makes perfect sense to me in this one, and you should still be able to win this game, 1-2-0, something like that.
Yeah, I at this point, I don't think either one of us really want to get too much into predicting football games. Like, why do we want to do that to our mental health? But I will ask you one question about the game coming up on Sunday. Dare they play the young man, Ryan Brewster?
I don't think so. He hasn't appeared much.
I know he hasn't been playing much, but would they do it to troll Liverpool?
Nah, they don't have the space for that right now. Like,
I know they're just trying to stay up.
Yeah, I mean they've got to just go with whatever they think will get them a result. If they thought that was a good pairing, and honestly, if Liverpool roll out Nat Phillips and Ozan Kabak, maybe you try it. Because maybe he's, I don't think McGoldrick is really kind of too much.
They don't really have a speedster in that attack. Not in that
Brewster might be the closest thing, so maybe you roll him out there and see what happens. But yeah, I don't think so. He'll probably appear at some point. I just hope he doesn't score against us.
Oh God, that's what I'm thinking. Where it's just like we're in a position where we're looking at this year as Murphy's Law. Well, if you're writing the script for Liverpool to have the most miserable 2020-2021 season, that would kind of be the fucking bow on it, right?
Right. The child that we let go scores against us now. Like, oh man, we loaned out Harvey Elliott. He's tearing apart the championship.
He's crushing in the championship.
We loan out Takumi Minamino and immediately pops.
He immediately scores a couple of goals.
Oh, come on, man! I still don't get that move, but
I think we just don't understand why he wasn't playing for Liverpool. But
yeah, I mean, I think there was an argument in there for him to be playing on a regular basis when he was with us. So, why not just see what happens? But
yeah,
hey, you know what? He is getting minutes there. He is playing consistently in a side that plays decent football.
Looks good, yeah.
Next year, if it's like, he comes back next year and he starts 20 games for Liverpool, fine, whatever. We'll see what happens.
All right, so did promise a little bit of futures talk. So let's just go and take a look at what you think for Liverpool next season. If the dream scenario happened, if you could make magic happen, you could get whatever you want. What are you kind of looking like for the Liverpool squad for next year? Starting 11 and then just like some of your key influencers off the bench.
So I would really, I think a couple things have to happen. One, uh, there's players that are legends that are going to have to kind of maybe take on a different role. I'd like to see my dream scenario is Erling Haaland comes into the team and takes over at the number 9 role. Bobby Firmino is our first sub off the bench. He is a Liverpool legend. I love Bobby, but he's approaching 30 now. I think he is 30 now, and he's played a lot of games. So when we look at this team, remember the guys that were the foundations of it. Bobby Firmino is one of them. He was one of the key guys in Klopp making the systems that he's made, and has played so many games for Liverpool. I can't remember how many games, but he's played an insane amount of games for Liverpool, and he's scored a lot of goals, but we've put a lot of miles on him. And maybe I think it would be nice to give him a little bit of an opportunity to just go, okay, look, we'll bring you off the bench, but you're going to play a variety of roles. Like I might need you in a 10. I might actually need you to play even as like an 8. I might need you to play the 9 because he's one of the best. The truth is, he's one of the best defenders on the team when he's on his game.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how much he used to create for us defensively. Now, some of that has gone by the wayside, but I think, when you look at it, he's burnt out. He's suffering without the crowd. He's very much an emotional guy who feeds off the crowd. I'd like to see Haaland come in, and then Bobby could either play behind him as a 10 or come off the bench.
Or how about just like Firmino, because he plays basically 3 positions for Liverpool right now. Just pick one. Just play one.
Yeah, exactly. I only need you to do one thing. I don't need
just do one.
Just
do one thing.
Just do one thing. That's it. Just do it really
I'm
well.
sure that would be a load off for him. That'd be so much easier.
Exactly. And as he ages, it'll help keep him healthier. I think it'll help keep him a little bit engaged. I don't want to see Bobby Firmino leave the club. I just want to see his role evolve so that he's more effective and we're making the most of his talents. So, yeah, I would say, I would like to keep Salah and Mane if possible. I think that especially if we finish top 4, we'll have the money to get Haaland without selling Salah. I don't think it's necessary. So I think if you can then have a front 3 or front 4, let's say, and you've got maybe Jota behind to start, Bobby coming off the bench, Mo and Mane and Haaland. That's a pretty crazy attacking group. But if you want to go 4-3-3 still, you can chop and change and go based on your opponent, put in what you think you need. You can always start Bobby Firmino in different games. There's going to be games where guys are hurt. There's going to be different scenarios where, look, everyone's going to get their game, right? But I think you sell Divock Origi. I think you sell Xherdan Shaqiri, and you roll with these guys. It's Jota, Haaland, Bobby, Mo, Mane, and Harvey Elliott. That is a good attacking 6 in terms of options and people off the bench. And people are probably like, Harvey Elliott's 18. I know, but look at the way his body's developing.
He's got as many goal contributions this season already, and that's with a dozen plus games left. He's got as many goal contributions as Jack Grealish had in his best season in the championship.
Exactly. And would you tell me that you
17, by the way.
You can tell me you wouldn't take Jack Grealish off the bench right now?
I take Jack Grealish in the starting 11, so yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay. I think, that was for your 6. And then so I think Milner's probably going to go to Leeds for kind of a swan song. Genie's out. So, all right, midfield. Right now we're on 8 or 9 midfielders in our lineup. You've got to have at least 7, I would say, because you're going to play a midfield 3. So Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson, and then you'd have Ox, Keita, Jones. That's 6. And then you're probably, I assume you're going to sell Harry Wilson and Marco Grujic. So I would probably go and get a midfielder. I don't know who. It could be a young guy. It could be, look, you're talking about, you really just need like a 7th choice midfielder, most likely. I mean, we're probably not talking about somebody that's going to compete for the starting lineup. But if you wanted to go get a star, I'm not against that. But it's kind of one of those things like you're probably not going to sign too many big names. And if you were, one of them is going to be in defense because that's where you've got some headaches. We know that. We don't know how the center backs that we've signed are going to pan out. Right, so we don't. Maybe Ben Davis. Maybe he doesn't stay. I don't know. Maybe he does. We'll see. We're gonna have to see him play at some point in order to make that decision. But he may never play. And Klopp just go, no, he's not up to the level. You're gonna sell Nat Phillips, I think, because he'll actually have value after this year. He's English. He's 24. He's got kind of a traditional English style of play to him. There's a club in England who's going to want homegrown players, and I think you can get 10 to 15 million pounds for that player. So let's see. Outgoing, we have Origi, Nat Phillips, Harry Wilson, Marco Grujic, Shaqiri. I'd sell all those guys to fund, Haaland, a center back. But I'd really also like a right back. And the reason I'd like a right back is because I think that Trent could move into the midfield and play a different role possibly next year. I'm not saying he wouldn't play right back ever again, but it would be interesting to see him start to shift into a midfield role.
Do you think next season would be too soon to try to just roll it out?
No, I really don't. I think that, look, he's been a part of the attack so much that it's not even going to be that foreign. And also, yeah, he maybe needs to put on a little bit of weight in terms of muscle, but he's got all the skills and he's got the experience now to play any position he wants in the Premier League. I think he's got a style of play that he can give you incredible shots with his laces, with a curl. He can give you balls through the midfield to unlock a defense. He can play 40-yard switches. He can do whatever you want. I think kind of putting him in a position like you would put Gerrard in isn't necessarily the worst idea. And if you need midfield depth, I like it as an option. I don't, I like Nico Williams. He may end up being a really great player, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if he didn't have to be that at the age of 19. So, I think that it is another thing. If Trent goes down, Nico Williams is really, once James Milner is gone, Nico Williams is your only backup right back. So I would like to go get a right back. I don't want to say like an Aaron Wan-Bissaka type, but almost like an Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Well, someone who's a more traditional right back who's going to be better in the challenge, not going to go nearly as far forward, where he's going to get to midfield and, probably stop. Maybe he'll patrol a little further, but he's not going to be there where you need to have a Henderson to get back in order to make that function.
To tell you the truth, I've kind of liked Wan-Bissaka's game this year. He's been pretty good, even going forward. I'm not saying he's incredible, but he's done a job.
He kind of looks like what Trent has been this year, where Trent is almost skittish to go forward. But that's kind of perfect for Wan-Bissaka's game because he doesn't need to get into the penalty area. He doesn't need to be a creator.
That's not who he is.
It's a bonus when he does that. Yeah. But he can do it.
So I think, maybe a right back. I'd like either Carr or the Kouyaté kid possibly to come in as a center back if you're not going to keep these guys. We'll see what happens with Kabak. I think of all the guys there that are there right now, the 3 center backs that we have right now, Kabak is the one that has the best chance of staying. Davis, while cheap and, maybe good, I don't know. But we'll see. If he doesn't start more than 5 games, I'm not banking on him making this move permanently. I'm going to say, this is good, and then off to Celtic he goes, which will be a great move for his career. He'll get to play, next year Europa League, but maybe Champions League.
I was gonna say it's no Rangers, so
yeah. So they're going to be the Champions League spot, but he'll get to play at a club that has a chance to win things and play in Europe, and so that'll be good for him. But if that happens, though, you'll have your 3 center backs that we have now. You'd have Kabak. I think you still need one more to make Fabinho your 6th option, which would be the best way to go. And I would try to go after either Carr or the other kid from Red Bull, not the one that just signed for Munich.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Carr, the scouting report on him was really good. And they talked about him being kind of like a new Virgil van Dijk in terms of his style of play. And maybe he could give you, if say Virgil can't come back until October, or maybe he comes back, but he has kind of a little niggle or something, and it's not quite right. Or maybe he just struggles to get up to match fitness at first, or whatever it is. And I'm not saying that Virgil van Dijk isn't superhuman and that he's not going to come back and be perfect right away. That's totally possible. But let's just say that it's not the way that it pans out, because our luck is running. It would be nice to have somebody that could kind of imitate him, even if it's like a low budget version of him. It'd be nice to have somebody who could imitate him. And, you'll get Matip back and you'll get Joe back. You'll have these different options. And it would take a lot of the pressure. Kabak's now coming to a situation where he's facing a lot of pressure. But then next year,
if he's 3rd or 4th choice just fighting for a spot, like that's so much easier at 21 years old.
Yeah. Take it easy. Develop. Work on your body. Work on your game.
Go do some wind sprints, get a little quicker.
Don't worry, you're going to play against, Lincoln Town in the FA Cup and whatnot, but we're not going to, that's if we ever get to play a Lincoln Town in the FA Cup instead of Wolves.
Yeah, right.
Manchester United. Like, can we just get somebody who's not in the Premier League? I want City draws, one FA Cup.
Nah.
Never going to happen.
Never.
I think we're set at keeper, and at least for now, you could probably go out and look for a 3rd option keeper other than Adrian, because I think Adrian's contract is up after this year.
But they did bring in young Spanish kid over the summer. Yeah. So I think, and he has been training a lot with the team. I can't remember the kid's name, but he does seem like one for the future. So if you got the one for now, then the backup Kelleher, and then one for the future, I think you're probably good there.
Yeah, I think you're all set there. So no money to be spent on the keeper. And, I think we're probably set at left back now. Hopefully Shimikas can start to play more of a role. And, this first year settling in was always going to be kind of an adventure for him.
But injury, COVID, it's been a year for him too.
Yeah, it's not going great. But hey, kid, it can't get any worse. Hopefully it doesn't get any worse. So, how about you? It was because I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, so you're probably doing 50 to 60 in sales, maybe if you're lucky. If you get the value on.
If you're getting max value, then that's on the upper end, is that 50-60 range. I mean, I'm thinking they'll probably, because I'm considering them selling a lot of the similar players like Origi, Shaqiri. Those are 2 guys who are going to play first team football wherever they go. I could easily see someone like Divock Origi go somewhere in France, like Lille, who's top of the French league right now, or Olympiacos, somewhere like that.
He came from Lille, though.
Right. So I could see him easily going somewhere like that. For a Belgian to be able to go somewhere where you can speak French and all that, that sounds like a life. And to play in a easier league where they're not nearly as quick. So Origi would be running by some people in that league. Yeah, that sounds great for him. And I'm sure a team would like to have a Champions League winner on their squad. But then you also have Shaqiri, who's still in a spot where he's a prime player, where he can go, and it'd be more of a mid-table squad, but he would be starting every single week for a very good Premier League team. And if he were to go back to Germany or something like that, I mean, he'd be a king back over there. So they're both players where I look at where it's like, all right, you should be getting somewhere around 20 for each of them. But then I have no clue what you're going to get out of Grujic. I have no clue what you're going to get out of Wilson. But I would absolutely be saying those are players you should be trying to sell as well. And then outside of that, I feel like the squad shouldn't change too much. I mean, looking at the keeper, Becker and Kelleher. Looking at right back, you've got Nico behind Trent. looking at center back, I think you're pretty much square away now. Because with Kabak, I do look at him as a third choice, but would be vying for that second spot, especially if he, does kind of develop over the next couple of months, which he doesn't really have much of a choice to. He's going to have to get better. So he doesn't have a choice. So that could be great for him long term, or it could absolutely send him into the shitter. Like, we'll see how he plays. But with those guys, with Virgil van Dijk back, with Matip back, with Gomez back, with Kabak, I feel pretty good at that spot, Davis being your fifth center back. And then you go to potentially, whether it's Phillips or if he goes off like you kind of think could happen, or if it's Cometio, or if it's Williams. Well, now all of a sudden, you've got a gang of dudes who have senior center back experience at Liverpool, and you feel a lot better at that position, even if you don't have Virgil van Dijk and Virgil van Dijk 1A and 1B. Like, you still feel really good about at least the depth of that situation. I think the two spots where I would want to add right away, Erling Haaland, we can agree on that because he's a generational talent. Like, so many people talk about how FSG, they're Moneyball, they're not going to spend money. But the one thing that people have to remember about Moneyball, about that kind of setup, is that Moneyball only tells you to be cheap when you're spending in the margins. If you were getting a squad player, that's where you go for the cheaper option. That's where you go for the player who you're being a little bit more creative.
Data science.
You go for the data science when you're going for a squad player. But if it's a generational talent, you spend all your money. I mean, think of what the Boston Red Sox did with Carl Crawford. They determined Carl Crawford to be their guy. He turned out to not be their guy, but they broke the bank for Carl Crawford. When they looked at David Price, same way. They went and spent a bunch of money. Even just here at Liverpool, you look at what they did with Virgil van Dijk, broke the bank. Alisson broke the bank. Going at Naby Keita, broke the bank. And two of those three guys have panned out to be the guy that they thought they were getting. So when you look at FSG, I think it's a little overstated that they're reluctant to spend. They're reluctant to go waste money. They're not reluctant to spend. And I don't think those are the same thing. So if Erling Haaland if they have the money to get Erling Haaland, I think they would make it happen because he is a generational talent. He's not just a target man. He's not just a false nine. He's kind of a complete center forward. And that's one thing that Liverpool don't have in attack, and they're sorely needing. Even more so, I mean, Jordan, he's talked me into it, man. I think he's more. I think he'd be more important for this side for Liverpool than even Kylian Mbappe. And I think Mbappe is going to be the best player of this next crop. But he's also a winger in a way where he's not a center forward. Haaland is a complete center forward. And I think if you are able to complement him with Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah and Diogo Jota, I totally agree that is a dynamic attack. I mean, that's football and cocaine right there. That's amazing. That is amazing. So I would say yes, Erling Haaland, because he's a generational talent. If it's not Haaland and it's Mbappe, whatever. If you are able to get someone who's a generational talent, I don't care how much debt you have to rack up. You go get that guy. Then the other player outside of that I think they should be considering, I do think that they should go for a midfield option, but I specifically think for a backup number 6. Because what we've seen this season without Fabinho, without a destroyer in the midfield, you really see a lot of guys doing things that are uncomfortable, especially when you consider that Thiago was brought in to play a certain role. When you know what Gini Wijnaldum looks like when he's at his best. When you know what Jordan Henderson looks like when he doesn't have to play the 6 and he's free to play the 8. Liverpool operates so much better when they have someone in that 6th position who is just messing stuff up and nobody can get by him. And it might even be a bonus if it's someone who could, go play center back if you really, really need him to. So if Liverpool, and obviously they would not be able to get him because he'd be too expensive and he's obviously already a starter in the Premier League, but someone like a Declan Rice who can play the 6, who can play as a center back, he's kind of that do whatever the hell you need him to do as a destroyer. Someone of that mold is what they should be looking at. And maybe Marco Grujic is that, maybe we're wrong and Grujic is going to be the guy to do that. But someone in that mold of Declan Rice is what I would look at. But Liverpool have been
I would
linked.
kill for someone in the mold of Wilfred and Ndidi. But...
Oh yeah, hell yeah, Wilfred and Ndidi. Like, dude, even Yuri Tillemans, who's not a 6 particularly, but he plays so tough and strong in the 8 role where it's like he might as well be like someone like that. Oh, 100%. But yeah, just any kind of destroyer.
I'm not going to
that's what I would be
argue if
looking
we
at.
sign someone with D Rice on the back of their jersey. I'm just saying.
you're getting his shirt right away, yeah. If that were to happen,
it's the first time I'm getting a player's name.
Yeah, there aren't any Thigpens who are good at football, so I don't know if that's ever going to happen for me. But yeah, that's what I would kind of look at. I would look at as a backup 6 or someone who could kind of play in as a double pivot, backup center back, someone who's just a destroyer. But yeah, but Renato Sanchez is the dude who they've been linked with from Lille. He's more of a number 8 than he is a 6, but that's a player who Liverpool has been linked with. But yeah, like you said, it's been linked with him for the last 2-3 years. He's getting into the Adama Traore and Ismaila Sarr territory of.
Oh no, he's well past that.
Or he's well past Sarr. Sarr's only been a year and a half.
This has been since like the 2016 Euros. Every summer,
right.
There's a rumor that we're going to get Renato Sanchez. Like, okay.
Right, no, he's getting into to Lamar range. He's getting into Thomas Lamar. But yeah,
it's gotten ridiculous.
It'll be interesting to see what business would happen this summer. I think it's pretty safe to say that there will be moves made because they rolled the dice on going with the same squad this year, plus Thiago and Jota, and even that wasn't enough. I'm not from a standpoint where I think they would need to make 4 or 5 moves to make it happen. I think if they even just got 2 backups, a backup 9 who could go in and out with Bobby and a backup 6, I think if everyone is healthy, that's enough to go win the league next year. I don't think they have to go and spend a bunch, but I mean, there's a generational talent who's about to become available. I think you need to go get him.
Yeah, me too. And there's another concern here, and it's just the age profile of the squad. You know, I think you've got a lot of guys in their late 20s, and you want to have guys that are in their mid-20s coming in behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't have it at the moment, other than Naby's 25. Okay, he's okay for a couple of years. You still got him in his mid-20s. I'm trying to think of who else, though.
Jota is 23.
Jota's 23. Trent is still young.
22.
But Robbo is 28 this year.
Minamino is 24, I want to say.
So that's another one. Okay,
Elliott is going to be 18. Like they do have a number of young guys, but I think they've got too many guys who are 1 year away and not as many guys who are like, this is a guy who would be starting first team on another Premier League team. They got a couple of guys who's like fringe.
Yeah. And we've got
as far as those younger in the profile of that age.
Yeah. We've got to bring those guys along a little bit. And because in 2 years, I don't think I think we're going to view the way we rely on guys like Mane and Salah a little bit differently. I think you're going to view the way we lean on Henderson quite so much in a different way. So,
yeah, Henderson can't do this forever. I mean, he's so integral to their side. They need someone else to be able to do that. And there's currently no one on the roster that can replicate what Jordan Henderson does.
I think he'll be 31 next season.
Yeah, he already turned 30. He turned 30 right before they won the Premier League last year. So he's turning 31 this summer.
So 31 this summer. So the next year, you're kind of, so he's getting up there in his years, not like he's old or anything by life standards, but by football standards, 32 is where you start to decline.
And let's be honest,
especially as a midfielder.
I would say putting in that workman type role for Liverpool, the way they're constructed, like as much as people talk about, Liverpool can't play this style forever. I'm not worried about Mane, Salah, Firmino. I'm worried about the midfielders. They're the ones who have been putting in all the dirty work. So if anyone's football career is going to be cut short, it'd be someone like Gini Wijnaldum. It'd be someone like James Milner, someone like Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
Those are the guys who have been busting their ass the last 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I that's kind of, I'm in the same place. Like I worry about those same guys. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how they rebuild. Not this summer. This summer, I think you can just focus on a couple of key signings. But those signings will be crucial in helping you rebuild down the line again. So like after next season, You're going to have another summer where you are going to have to bring in some younger talent or that kind of middle 20s range talent.
And who knows? And maybe the guys who they do have, the younger guys, do develop to that point where this Jake Kane dude, we're talking about him in 2 years, like, oh my God, he's amazing.
Maybe. We
don't know.
Or maybe it is, like you said, maybe Marco Grujic has a role to play when he comes back. I don't know.
Right.
He's only 23 years old, but maybe, Harvey Elliott ends up becoming an absolutely incredible player. And you think to yourself, like, well, we really don't need any expensive attacking players for a while because we've got Haaland and Harvey Elliott. This is the Welsh Messi and or whatever, the English Messi, and then a generational talent in Haaland, and you've got these aging Sadio Mane or Bobby Firmino hanging around, but nonetheless still very good players.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, and Diogo Jota as well. So like it'll be interesting to see kind of as we come out of next summer what the squad profile looks like. So I do think there will be some significant changes.
Yeah, I look at it from the standpoint where I think the term rebuild gets thrown out, and I look at Liverpool and I'm like, they don't need a rebuild; they just need to reload. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
They just need a couple extra bullets in the chamber. That's it. That's it.
That is the better way to look at it. Like you said, the term rebuild. It's easy to think of like, oh well, if Bobby Firmino and Gini Wijnaldum and let's say Joel Matip or something wasn't in the lineup, that's a rebuild. Well, that's not really a rebuild. That's just a restructuring, maybe, or like
right. If you're moving those guys from being starters down to the bench, and then you're bringing in someone who was on the bench to a starting role, like that's a shift. That's not a complete overhaul in the same kind of way. Yeah. And then I'm still stuck on the fact that like so many people, when they talk about what Liverpool would have to do to go get a top tier talent, it's always they would have to sell Salah, cash in on Salah, go get rid of Salah, and I'm looking at Salah as like, he's your best player right now. So going and trying to, you would have to bring in someone who's as good, if not better. And there's only a handful of dudes on the planet who can do that. So making that move doesn't make sense if you're trying to get better. So I don't see that as being the way either.
Not only that, but like, if I'm him, given the current situation,
you want to go to Barcelona and not get paid?
Yeah, exactly. Like the checks are bouncing. Like, no, I don't think so. Are you going to go to Real Madrid?
You're going to move your young family to Spain where y'all already don't speak the language, and the pressure is going to be intensified because they actually do love him on Merseyside. He's going to be just another dude. Ask Eden Hazard how that's going. Like,
well, not only that, but like,
grass ain't always greener, bruh.
They just announced that they're like 518 million euros in debt.
Mm-hmm. Both the Spanish clubs. Spanish clubs are in disarray. In France, they're having all kinds of issues with their TV contracts. Like Liverpool
no one bought the French TV rights.
Right. Liverpool and the English Premier League are in so much of a better financial standpoint than anyone around the world is in. And I don't think people are really taking that into consideration because that has an impact. What it means when you don't have the money coming in from the TV deal, all of a sudden winning the competition doesn't mean what it did when you had that big TV money, because that's all it is. It's not like, oh, you win the Premier League, therefore you get this much money. It's you get this cut of our TV money that we brought in. Like, that's the kind of thing that you have to take into consideration. Obviously, the Champions League is kind of a little bit different because it's controlled by UEFA, which controls all of Europe. But you have to remember that it does make a difference from what you just get off of your winnings. And then, of course, the marketability. And, the Premier League, pretty damn visible. Like, they're watched everywhere. It's not just the super teams, but it's everyone that's watched all across the world. So there's just more money and more opportunity being in England right now. Like, that may not be the case forever because, like, you and I have kind of gone back and forth in the group chat. All of the other leagues are the ones that are competitive, not the Premier League right now. So maybe in 5 years... Maybe in 5 years, it'll be the Bundesliga, and that'll be the one everybody's watching. But for right now,
maybe
England's where it's at. And it's not even close. It's really not close.
Yeah, I do think some shifts are happening. But at this moment, and this is the last big move of Mohamed Salah's career, right? Like, whatever happens next is, after that, it's going to be like he's 32 or 33. Where do you think he's going to go? Probably like, I don't know if he'll ever play in MLS, but maybe he goes and plays in Qatar or in China or something like that. It's not going to be like he just stays at the highest level forever. That's not likely. So I think but for me, like for him, if I'm thinking about Mohamed Salah as a brand, right? What does PSG offer me that Liverpool can't? Nothing. They don't even have a fucking TV deal. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even shown in every country in the world. Like, and like to your point that you pointed this out in the group chat was, are people waking up in China to watch that league or just to watch PSG? And does that undermine the credibility of that league? Like, because it's one team. It's one team to most people outside of that country. It's one team. So, and like, if you're not going to end it, like, okay, Real Madrid or Barcelona, they make a difference.
They are their own brands. Yes.
Yeah. So brand style aligns with that, and it becomes a big thing. I totally get that.
Yes.
Another team that could maybe do it is Bayern Munich, but does he fancy that? Is that, I don't know, is that's what he's in? I don't picture him playing in Germany as like his next.
I think he would go back to Italy before he would go to Germany.
That's what I think too.
And I just don't see him at Juventus. I mean, that doesn't really make sense.
It's like, what's he gonna do? Go back to Roma? Like, they're not even in the Champions League right now. Like, what is the other move? He's not going anywhere in England. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a different conversation if you were looking at Real Madrid and they were top crushing, and that's clearly the spot everyone wants to be. I don't see that being the case for them. And then Barcelona, maybe if Barcelona were to actually sell Messi and get all the money they would want for Messi, which would never happen in a billion years. But if they were to make a £500 million transfer for Messi, then maybe you could say, well, then it would make sense to go get Salah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then that becomes a different conversation. Right. That becomes a different conversation. But as things sit right now, it doesn't make sense for him, because anything else would be a lateral, if not step back. It'd be a lateral move as far as the team goes. And then as far as the league goes, it'd be a clear step back, which, maybe you can make the argument that, you'd want that to be a little bit easier on the legs week in, week out. But
maybe he wants to play at the highest level for a little longer.
I mean, I don't know, man. I just feel like he's a competitor where he would want to play the toughest competition week in, week out. That's where I think so many guys do want to take on that challenge of going and playing a wet night in Stoke and doing it then. You know what I mean? Like, I think guys are attracted to that because they're competitionaholics. Like, they don't want the easy path. They want to destroy everyone and everything. They want to be their own man and go and be the man and crush it.
Yeah. Who knows about Sadio, but I don't see him leaving. I don't know why. Yeah. I just feel like he's made to be here until he's decided that he doesn't. But that's not going to be for a while.
All right. So you notice I didn't really mention offloading anyone, but I do think if you were to offload any of the front three, I think Sadio would make more sense than Salah right now, only because I can't assume that he's going to get back to the form where he was 2 years ago or even beginning of last year. I can't assume that. I would say it's more likely he's at his peak compared to Salah. I don't think Salah is at his peak quite yet, because I see his numbers and it's like, wow, he's about to put up 17, 18 again. You see Firmino, clearly he's past his peak. So you're not going to get the same kind of value. So as far as the loss of talent that is irreplaceable compared to the money that you could get for them, Sadio would make more sense. And I say that as a dude who literally today just purchased another Sadio Mane shirt. So I do not want to see him go at all. And I would not want to see him go even if that meant bringing in Mbappe or Haaland. I would rather keep it with Sadio. But from a purely business standpoint, I think he would make the most sense, because Salah, we don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to have a sharp decline. I think people assume it's going to happen, but I've seen nothing
may not be for a while.
Right. I've seen nothing to signal that he's going to drop off. With Sadio, he's gotten hurt a few more times. He's had the dead leg issue last year and this year. been a little inefficient in the same way that Mo has, but he also hasn't had the goal contributions to kind of make it okay, well, cover it up. So I think if you're being ruthless, he would be the one that you look at. I think Bobby would be the easy one to say, like, all right, well, he's clearly past his prime, but again, you're not going to get the same kind of money you would for either Salah or Sadio. But yeah, I still think Liverpool are in a spot where if they can financially do it, you absolutely go get Haaland. Don't even think about selling nobody, and then just go win everything next year, because that's probably how that would shake out if they were to get somebody like Haaland without sacrificing any of the front three.
Hey, if we get top 4, I think it happens, but that's just me. I'm an optimist.
I think it can happen. I think it can happen regardless. Like I'm gonna come out with the little conspiracy. Erling Haaland, Jadon Sancho, Kylian Mbappe, all Nike
athletes. I know.
Liverpool, Nike club. And Nike's number 1 guy right now, LeBron James. Oh, he happens to own Liverpool. Hey, shoe money, commercial deals. That's what's moving the sporting world, whether we like it or not. Those kind of long-term deals, getting in those for life deals with Nike, that is what's moving the needle right now, not just going and winning football games, unfortunately. That's the way of the world.
It's possible. Anything's possible.
I think Nike would, and especially for Haaland and Sancho, they are currently at Dortmund, which is a Puma club, not a Nike club. So I think they would like to have their top Nike guys at Nike clubs if they could swing it. So I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying.
I like the optimism.
I'm just saying. But all right, David. Normally we have the 2-minute warning coming in every few minutes when we're on our longer Zoom calls. We've gone nearly 2 hours because it's just been the two of us, and Zoom allows you to have a conversation with 2 people as long as you want.
Exactly. This is 2 shows now.
Yeah, we could probably go all night if we really wanted to. I don't feel like editing 2 shows, so y'all are just gonna have to sit through a 2-hour show.
Hey, TBKT marathon.
Yeah, but it's been a fun one. It's been a fun one. We covered a lot of stuff, David. It's been real.
A good show.
I'm Darius.
I'm David.
It's been Tampa Bay Cop Talk, just the 2 of us. We'll see you next time. Hopefully,
we
Liverpool
can get 3 points if we try.
Get 3 points if they try. Just the 2 of us. David and I.
Off the Reds.
Off the Reds.